going to be having a short icebreaker session. And if you look in the chat, I have included a link to www.slido.com. Once you open up that site, please just input the number and it will take you directly to the first question. Please just indicate in the chat if you are able to access that website and if you have put in the number. You can use the reactions button to indicate if you're able to get to the website. And the first question that you should be able to see is, how are we feeling today? Happy, thank you. Excellent. Feel awesome, happy. Great and energized for the week. Excellent. Good, excited. Oh, this is great. Positive responses and a very good start to the webinar. And we have more responses. Thankful. Wow. Okay, and the second question which we have is, where are you joining the webinar from? Your location. Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. Have Cornwall, England, Benin City, Edo State, United Kingdom, Bradford, UK, Edinburgh, UK, Lagos, Nigeria, Bradford, UK, Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you all for your responses. And lastly, what are your expectations of this webinar? Okay, we have a first response to learn more about gender issues. Excellent. To be more informed. That's awesome. And to be empowered. Okay, thank you all. Meet new people working on gender and to learn more about gender issues. This is excellent. This basically sets the tone on what we are going to be discussing to some extent today. And we have more responses which say we're going to have an interactive learning engagement on gender roles and stimulate discussions on gender and its appurtenant issues. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. It's an inaugural webinar organized by the ILA Nigeria Committee on Women in International Law and Development. Today's program is titled Understanding Gender Roles Within the Context of Development, and we have a lineup of speakers and a lineup of persons who are going to provide some basis and an introduction to the committee and also talk to us about understanding gender roles within the context of development. Before we start, I would like to just set some housekeeping rules for the event. My name is Irekpitan Okukpon, and I'll be your moderator for the duration of the webinar. We would like to encourage everyone to please keep your microphones muted, and when it's time for the question and answer session, I'll call upon you to ask your questions. You could also use the chat function to put in your questions, and it will be attended to during the Q&A session, which starts at 11:50 a.m. I would now like to call on the chairperson of the International Law Association, Committee on Women, International Law and Development, Dr. Pedi Obani. She's actually the host of the event, and I would just like to introduce her really briefly. Dr. Pedi Obani is an associate professor of law at the School of Law, University of Bradford, England. She has over 14 years in teaching and research, and she specializes in research, academic program design, research and policy advisory on climate change governance, just transition, gender equality, and the human rights to water and sanitation. Before starting her academic career, she qualified as a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria and was active in private law practice. Dr. Bani is currently a UKRI Future Leaders Fellow. I would now like to call on Dr. Obani to give her welcome remarks. Dr. Obani, please.
Thank you very much, Ira, for your warm welcome, and good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and to meet you all. I just want to say a very big thank you for taking out time from your busy schedules to be here with us this Monday morning. We don't take it for granted, and it does promise to be a very insightful webinar, because we have an excellent keynote speaker here with us already today. Without further ado, because I know you want us to get on with the business of the day, I'd like to call on the Vice Chair of ILA Nigeria branch. I don't know if she's online already, Oludayo Olorunfemi. Please, are you online? Otherwise, I think we can carry on with the next bit of the event, and then we'll invite Oludayo Olorunfemi to address us as soon as she is online.
Pedi, I think she's actually online, but I'm not sure if she has muted herself.
Can you hear us? Maybe let's because I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I can't hear either.
Okay. So we'll apologize for this. We'll try and get in touch with her and see if she's able to unmute, or as soon as she can, she'll let us know, and then she can come to the mic, if that's okay. So we're really delighted to have with us our keynote speaker, Mrs. Nella Andem-Ewa, SAN, FCI Arb. She's the principal partner of Lexglobal Partners LP. Permit me to share with you just some brief highlights of her esteemed career, and to introduce you to her before we get on with the keynote address. So, Mrs. Nella Andem-Ewa, SAN, is the principal partner of Lexglobal Partners LP, a renowned legal practice and consultancy service firm based in Abuja and Calabar. Nella has been at the very top of the legal profession, in a variety of capacities with over 38 years experience. She has created an innovative and robust legal practice with core competencies in legislation, arbitration, commercial law, and qualitative legal advice support to multinationals, local businesses and organizations, as well as government bodies. Nella was the Attorney General of Cross River State from 1999 to 2003, and during her tenure, she became the first African female to address the International Court of Justice as counsel. She was elevated to the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria in 2009, and she was a member of the Body of Benchers Disciplinary Committee until 2018, when she was appointed a life bencher of the Body of Benchers. Nella is a chartered fellow of the Institute of Arbitration and a member of the Energy Institute, United Kingdom. Nella is also a member of the 5th Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission and member of Council of Legal Education. She's a member of the Royal Society of Arts and the chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the Leprosy Mission Nigeria. Nella was a member of the Legal Committee of the National Council on Privatization between 2017 and 2023. She's a national legal advisor for Pan-Niger Delta Forum and a member of the League of Women Voters of Nigeria. She was conferred with Honorary Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations in 2024. She is the chairperson of Ethic Association for Women and Youth Development and Aged. She's also the chairperson of McVey and Stewart Nigeria Limited. Nella was listed among 100 leading women leaders in Nigeria in the 2022 edition of Gender Perspective, and she sits on the board of a number of private companies. Nella is a regular speaker on diverse local and international platforms where she addresses issues on legal reforms, gender, climate change, and also strongly advocates for positive social change. So we're really delighted and honored to have Nella with us here today. Before we invite Nella to now give her opening remarks and the keynotes, we would also like to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, the Honorable Minister for Women Affairs in Nigeria. We're delighted to have you here with us, Madam. Thank you for being here. So it's over to you, Mrs. Nella Andem-Ewa, SAN, for your keynote. Thank you for being here. I think Mrs. Nella is trying to log back in online because I don't see her online. Eric, can you see her online?
No, I can't, but perhaps we just give her a minute or two. Um, yeah, she's back online now.
Okay, thank you. So Mrs. Nella Andem-Ewa, Leonard Silk, it's over to you if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Excellent.
I've been struggling all morning, so let me apologize because I've been in and out. I don't know what's happening to the network. For some of us, you're familiar with this, but for others, you may be in shock, but that is the reality. And so I sincerely apologize. And I pray God that there's no further interruption. So good morning. I actually missed what you had said prior, but I want to believe. Can you hear me? Oh, dear me.
Yes, we can hear you, but I'm just wondering, maybe we try
Can you
switching
hear me?
I can hear you, but I was wondering if perhaps we tried
Oh.
switching off the video, if
Can
that
you
would
hear me?
help.
Please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? I think I'm just going to a lot longer than what I have time to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Please
hear
just
you. Can you
lovely.
hear me?
Yes, I can. So good morning. I'm going to just whiz through, and hope that you will circulate the paper and even the presentation, the PowerPoint, because I can't rely on the network as it is. But I still have to start by commending the organizers of this inaugural meeting. I think it's well timed. I think and it gives us the opportunity to evaluate the transformation potential of rethinking and redefining gender roles. My assignment is to share my thoughts about understanding gender roles within the context of development. And before I go any further, I would like us, while trying to prepare for this paper, the one thing which appears not connected, but which played on my mind, was the quotation by Coco Chanel that says, a girl should be two things: who she wants to be and what she wants to be. So it's the who and what she wants. So if we're entitled, if it's a fundamental right of anybody, and if a girl should desire to be whoever she wants to be, then she should be allowed, she should be granted the opportunities that everybody else has, equal opportunities to express herself, find expression in herself, and be comfortable with herself. And basically, I believe that's what the assignment is. So I first looked at the foundational influence of gender roles, because gender roles are socially constructed norms that dictate behaviors and responsibilities based on gender. So there's no society that doesn't have expectations. And those expectations of which gender should do what, defines the attitude and somehow confers on people or imposes on people the responsibilities that they should have, which is why for the Nigerians, when they said the wife is in the other room. Now, that's the understanding and that's the attitude. And it doesn't matter how smart you think you are, that underlying attitude guides more or less and defines more or less the subjects you emphasize, the grooming from home, and the schools that you attend. Please, can you hear me? Okay, right. Historically, traditional gender roles have placed men in leadership, financial, and decision-making positions, while women have been primarily responsible for caregiving, domestic labor, and informal economic activities. Men seem to be are the expected leaders, and also they are the ones that are granted or presume that they have the role of providing for the family. And because of that mentality and attitude, you feel that if you have given the husband, then that's enough. For instance, for those who are married to lawyers and maybe even in the same practice, they would normally say, even if you specialize in a certain branch of law, they will tell you, oh, we've given the husband and expect, and that's because the understanding is that the burden of maintenance, upkeep, and all of that is on the shoulder of the man. So without even thinking about it, you would they feel justified, for instance, to invite the husband, even though they know it is the wife that is specialized in the particular area of law that they require support. I have taken time to break this into 4 areas. Education. Of course, education remains the most powerful tool for dismantling structural inequities. What we are trying to achieve today is for us to bring to the fore the need to redefine roles. And as I've said, these roles are a product of society. And therefore, it is the thinking, it's the orientation, it's the mindset that defines how the opportunities available generally to women, and how at the end of the day, there's a deficit because a lot more people, you get a lot more mileage. And you can see from societies that allow for gender equality, that the women are given as much opportunity, and those who would thrive and those who are good in those areas will have an opportunity to contribute to the GDP and to the progress and success of that community or that state or that country. So I take education, for instance. The barriers to girls' education are multifaceted. Socioeconomic factors, including poverty and limited access to affordable schooling, force many families to prioritize education over that, boys' education over that of girls. Additionally, sorry? Okay. I hope I'm still being heard. Please, can you just indicate?
We can hear you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, very well. Sorry. I'm just trying to make sure that I use. Despite these obstacles, significant strides have been made in addressing gender disparities in education. And the reason I'm bringing this up is to also draw attention to the fact that there is a need to redefine those roles. And when you do that, and you're more deliberate in how you channel the opportunities that would cause women to thrive, that it impacts on society. And I give an example. For instance, significant strides have been made in addressing gender disparities in education. Rwanda has achieved gender parity in primary school enrollment, proving that policy-driven interventions can deliver results. Initiatives such as Kenya Free Primary Education Program and Nigeria's Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment, AGILE, has also demonstrated the positive impact of targeted policies in boosting girls' school enrollment. More recently, Jigawa State announced its intervention where well, they say use girls, but of course it's women, women would enjoy free education at all levels going forward. And because there is a disparity, they also have set aside funds to subsidize education of boys. But in the case of the girls, it is absolutely free from top. Top to bottom. So it's you that choose where you want to go. Arising. So let me jump to the economic participation. The contribution of women in Africa.
Network is bad here. What's the challenge I have with this virtual meetings?
Apologies, everyone. It seems we are having a bit of
Africa's economies are the labor force, but remain. So, in other words, they're more informal, but when implemented, women also often lack social protection, making them more vulnerable to economic shocks. Only 15% of women own land, but provide 70% of agricultural labor. So this is to bring the graphic injustice, inequity, where women are the ones who plant, women are the ones who are in the farms, women are the ones who are trading, but women do not have access to funding. How many women do you find in leadership positions in those sensitive areas? How many women do you find on the table deciding policies, making decisions that touch and affect women? If they're not there, then most of the time those things are laughed away, and at the end of the day, there's no measurable progress. I think I'll jump the examples I have given. I've given the Kenya
You sure you don't want me to come along?
Oh, we're only going to be here.
Okay, but then you can turn off the...
Turn off, please. Now, policy reforms are crucial to ensuring women have equal economic rights. For instance, governments must prioritize gender-sensitive economic policies. For example, and by the way, I think I jumped this, but I think I should speak about it. The fact that you have a lot of policies now in BOI, that is a Bank of Industry, where women's funds are made available and tailored for female entrepreneurs, enabling them to expand their businesses and contribute to economic growth. So we are seeing those initiatives are coming up, but we need more, and you can see the impact. As a matter, even CEDAW, which is a UN program, also is targeting interventions that will empower women and target legislation that will promote inclusivity, mainstreaming. These are critical outcomes where you are intentional in how you redefine the goal of women. Because when you do that, you can clearly see the correlation on the impact of development. Let me go to representation. In Nigeria's National Assembly, women occupy only 2.7% of the Senate seats and 3% of House. Contrast this with Rwanda, where women, considered benchmark for gender inclusive in decision-making positions, have far-reaching consequences as policies and legislation. I wanted to
when did she pass on?
Your faces by women. Other critical domain. Is it possible, please, to ask the people who are speaking to be more, to switch off their mics? Is it possible, please? So that I also know that I'm being heard. Is it possible? Can you hear?
Please, if you're not, can everyone please just mute their mics whilst we're listening to the keynote speech, please? Thank you very much for your cooperation. Sorry about that, madam.
Yes. Please, can you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So our advice.
Because I was. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's the problem now.
We can
you
hear
hear
you.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Let me jump to digital economy and to say that the digital revolution has the potential to bridge gender gaps. Yet, women remain underrepresented in Nigeria's digital economy. The use of it, the understanding of it, the exposure that is required for them to take advantage and to participate in that sector of the economy. Now, digital literacy, because for women to be better represented, they have to be exposed and have to have access to technology, digital literacy, and financial inclusion so that they can participate in digital entrepreneurship, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, e-commerce, and fintech. A gender digital divide persists, with women having significantly lower internet penetration. Now, human rights. I don't know. Please just confirm that you can hear me, please.
Yes, we can hear
silent you. Here. Okay, thank you. Now, human rights, the concept of intersectionality. Gender inequality does not exist in isolation. It intersects with other forms of discrimination, including race, disability, class, health status. Intersectionality, coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, helps us understand how different layers of disadvantage compound gender disparities. Women who belong to multiple marginalized groups often face overlapping and reinforced barriers that exacerbate their exclusion from economic, social, and political opportunities. Now, I would go to challenges because I think that's the crux of the matter. Despite advances, significant challenges remain, requiring urgent and coordinated responses to dismantle systemic inequalities. Some note, however, I would like to mention a few success stories, which also shows why we need to be deliberate in redefining those roles so that you have more people enjoying and taking those positions. Of course, rising female leadership, a woman such as Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of WTO, Amina Abubakar in the United Nations, exemplify the potential of Nigerian women in global leadership. You have Chinda Amanda, an author. Of course, I don't want to go, thank God, when it comes to the world of entertainment, I think they seem to be able to allow the best of the best the opportunity and the space to excel. Whereas there's so many other areas that we should excel and we should be exposed to that we're not being exposed to because of the orientation. Now, technology and innovation. The rise of digital platforms offers opportunities for women to access education, finance, and markets. NITDA is one agency that I believe has put out a lot of programs, especially for girls and women, to be able to expose them to the dynamics of the digital world. Now, following these barriers, though these successes are there and interventions exist, we still have those barriers. Child marriage. In child marriage, you know that 43% of girls marry below the age of 18, and as a result, it curtails their education and economic potential. Early marriage is often driven by poverty, cultural traditions, and gender norms that prioritize domestic roles for girls over their education and career aspirations. So in other words, what they may want is curtailed. The consequences of child marriage extend beyond lack of education, increased risk of early pregnancy, maternal mortality, which is a health issue, vaginal fistula, VVF, and intergenerational cycles of poverty, because that means they can't lift their families or where they're coming from. Stronger enforcement of child protection laws, increased access to education, advocacy, and effective data collection and community engagement initiatives are very critical in this area. I have spoken about the legal barriers. I've spoken about gender-based violence. I've also spoken about workplace and economic discrimination. I want to believe that if the paper is circulating, we would be able, you can read it. But these are issues that we cannot overlook. Now, for recommendations to address these gender disparities and challenges highlighted throughout this discourse, I propose the following recommendations, and I still put them under the heading. So you have education and skill development. We should implement policies that ensure equal access to quality education for girls, particularly in rural and marginalized communities. Expand scholarship opportunities and mentorship programs to encourage female participation in not just the conventional courses, like, when it's literary and arts, yes, it looks like what a girl should do. Instead of wanting to be a doctor, you say you should be a nurse, or those kinds of things. And so you start by ensuring that the exposure and the encouragement, and possibly even a reorientation to make sure that they are just as interested in STEM fields as they are interested in, those kinds of things. Now, enhance digital literacy initiatives, which I think I've repeated quite a lot. But that's the world that's where we're going. The world is heading. And so if we catch them young, and even those who are like the youthful age bracket, they should also be introduced where there are scholarships. Even politicians, they should invite, because I do know for sure that when the crypto thing was brought, there were politicians who funded that exposure, who funded those programs to at least introduce people into that sector. And believe you me, they were all usually 100% men, because they feel that they will be the ones that are interested. But how would you be interested in what you don't know about? Now, we should design and promote programs that expose women to skills and understanding of broad financial knowledge. That is an area that we do have quite a number, but we should also, you don't have to go to university. At those middle range skills, even painting, mechanic, you don't expect that. In fact, if you see a woman mechanic, you are likely, even you the woman, you are likely not to give her your car, and that shouldn't be the case. If a girl wants to do this, then let her do it. But if she's not exposed, she doesn't know what the options are. I went to economic empowerment and financial inclusion, strengthen microfinance initiatives and financial literacy programs targeting women entrepreneurs. A lot of the time, when you even attempt to get a soft loan or something, they ask you to go and bring your husband anyway. So I'm not saying that women should revolt. I'm not saying you shouldn't be the good wife. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you should have the opportunity. If there's something that you as a person want to pursue, you should be able to have those places you can go to and consult, and they will assist you to achieve. Now, healthcare and social protection. Increase investment in gender-responsive healthcare systems, ensuring women, particularly those in marginalized groups due to health conditions, ethnicity, and economic status, have access to quality medical services. Implement comprehensive reproductive health programs that prioritize women's agency over health decisions. There are some ailments that are peculiar to women, and they should be able to go and get sorted out. They should be able to go and know how to take care of themselves. They should be able to have where they can even discuss those things, where they can have counseling, so that a lot of women are dying not because they don't even know where to go and where to start. So those are the in-betweens that will define the role of a woman. You'll have a woman that is speaking to them. You'll also have a woman that can be cared for. Then political participation and leadership is to strengthen leadership training and mentorship programs to empower women in politics. Implement quota systems to increase women's representation in governance and decision-making bodies. Advocate for the passage and implementation of special seats for women's bill to improve female legislative representation. I know that some work is being done. I know that CEDA is in partnership with the National Assembly, and I'm believing God that before the end of at least their tenure here, that we would have achieved this special seats, because of course the variables are there that discourage women from even attempting. Not that they're not qualified, not that they are not competent, not that they're not able, not that they lack the capacity. But when you look at all the other factors, the funding to start with, they don't bother. Stigmatization, all sorts of things. They just stay put. But if we're intentional, then we can redefine the roles in such a way that they are more acceptable and that the opportunities are there for more women to vie. Climate change is another primary issue which I thought we shouldn't overlook. It is the women that they say cut the wood or burn them so as to farm. So those practices, how do you integrate gender considerations into national climate policies? And if women are not part of the decision making, how would they be sufficiently sensitive and to ensure that whatever the climate change policies are made, that it takes into account the fact that women and their children seem to be the ones that are most more directly impacted when something goes wrong. Expand access to climate smart agricultural technologies and climate finance tailored for female farmers. So that has the economy, but it also has the well-being. Promote sustainable livelihood programs that help women adapt to climate-related challenges, such as flooding and desertification. All those of recent you've had in around the Kogi area, you've had in Bielsa. But apart from maybe the donations, is it tailored? Is it tailored to those who are directly impacted? That's a question. Now, I talked about the human rights and legal reforms. We have to strengthen anti-discrimination laws and policies to address the compounded effects of gender and other forms of marginalization. Enforce protection. Please, can you hear me? Enforce protection for women with disabilities, rural women, and those marginalized by healthcare-linked cultural biases and stereotypes, thereby promoting gender equality as a fundamental human right. Enacting gender-responsive legislation, laws that guarantee and combat gender-based violence and promote parental leave are essential. Strengthening enforcement mechanisms beyond legislation. International cooperation, that is, we should deliberately try to align with and, where possible, domesticate those laws such that we are able to implement them and be guided and form part of the international community. We should harmonize legal systems, bridging gaps between customary, religious, and statutory laws to ensure consistency in protecting women's rights. Legal aid we are hardly hearing about, but if any group of people need it, I believe it is women. So we should put enough pressure to ensure that we revive and revamp our legal aid services with particular attention to women in rural areas. Judicial reforms, we need to sensitize the judiciary to gender issues so that we can have more equitable judgments. And I will stop here to say, for instance, of course, everybody, but sometimes it's that same constitutional completely disenfranchised. She will probably not have any documents to go against her to say anything because they depend on the husband. Those kinds of issues should be looked at with all seriousness. Advocacy, advocacy, advocacy in all what I've been speaking about, to champion policies and practices. We should be, anytime they invite people, there's an open air deliberation at the National Assembly. How many women organizations actually go there to lobby and go there to speak and go there to remind the the lawmakers, of which only a very little percent are women. We need to engage policy Yes. Let's can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Oh, thank God. Okay, let me just conclude. I'll just conclude. Redefining gender roles is not merely a social justice issue. It is an economic imperative. Africa loses 95 billion annually due to gender gaps, a cost we cannot afford as we strive for sustainable development. Gender inequality hinders economic progress, limits social cohesion, and undermines efforts to build resilient and inclusive communities. We must recognize that gender equity is fundamental to achieving national and global development goals. The role of international organizations and development partners cannot be overstated. The International Law Association must align with cross-border collaborations, knowledge exchange, research to enhance gender-focused initiatives, to advocate for policy changes, challenge harmful societal norms, and amplify the voices of women and girls in decision-making processes. I want to believe that the women, is it the women subcommittee on the International Law Association, definitely should focus and pay a little bit more attention than maybe any departments. I have just highlighted. As the African Union's agenda, equality has not been Africa into a global power to implement policies that create tangible and lasting change. Once again, I thank the International Law Association, Nigeria chapter, the Women Subcommittee for the platform and commend the contributors whose insights have enriched this discussion. Together, we can chart a path toward a future where every woman and girl has the opportunity to reach her full potential and contribute meaningfully to society. Which is why when I started with the quote, which may have appeared not to have anything to do with what we are discussing, I did say that the quote is, girl should be two things. In other words, in my opinion, it's her right to decide who she wants to be and what she wants for herself. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
No, thank you. I think that's very inspirational. Who she wants to be and what she wants to be. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I think at this point we're seeing the virtual rounds of applauses. So thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. And even though we didn't pick up some of the things you said because of the network, but it's really helpful that you've shared with us your slides and you've shared with us your paper. So we'll make sure that that's available through our social media channels to everyone who's registered here. So thank you. I'm hoping that everyone has started making notes of their questions and any comments that they want to make, because very shortly we will be going into the Q&A. But I think before we do that, because we've had the Honorable Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development in Nigeria waiting patiently and listening to everything that you've said. And so I think it's a good time to call the Honorable Minister to just share with us a few reflections on the discussion so far. And once the Honorable Minister has spoken, we'll then go on to the Q&A and just have everyone coming and share their comments, observations, and things like that. So at this point, Honorable Minister Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, we're delighted to have you here. It's over to you. Thank you. There seems to be a problem with the Honorable Minister's audio. Madam, can you hear us? Yeah, okay. I think if you can unmute. Whilst we're waiting to hear from Honorable Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, I'll encourage all of us to already start typing in your questions just so that you don't forget them. You can type your questions in the chat area so that we can have the keynote speaker respond to them once we go on to the Q&A segment. So please just type in your questions and any comments you may have in the chat area. And if you would rather use the mic, then feel free to just use the raise hand function. I think that function's available to all of us. So you could also use the raise hand function, and then we can call on you once we go into the Q&A. But I think I see comments. Thank you so much, Ma. That was an insightful session. Yeah, lots of thank yous. Ira, should I pass it back to you at this point?
Yes, you can. So we have thank you, Pedi. We have a couple of hands raised, and I'll just start calling on these persons. But before we do, just a quick reminder that you should please keep your comments, questions, or interventions short and concise so we can give an opportunity for others to make their interventions, comments, or questions. Like Pedi has said, you can put your comments, questions, interventions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, or you can use the raise hand button. I would like to call on Benga Odunton. Yeah, you have the floor, please. Benga Odunton, we can't hear you, please.
So sorry for that. I hope you can hear me at least now while I'm working on my camera as well. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me the singular honor of being the first person to ask a question. And the question is, of course, directed to the keynote speaker, the Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Nella Andem-Ewa. My question directly is, given that she herself has been a trailblazer who has for decades now been representing women at the top level in governmental engagements in Nigeria and in the legal profession. How can we move very quickly from the perception of tokenism, where on panels or in official appointments, there's the expectation that there will be one exceptional woman? How do we move from that reality to a more casual incorporation of women into leadership? And when I say casual, I mean more ready examples, not just one woman on a panel, but many women on a panel. So to the extent that we don't even mentally calculate again which gender is represented, because we just expect that both genders will be amply represented. The specific strategies that will make this possible is what I think someone like her who can help us with now, because she herself, like I said, I've recognized her. I've been on panels with her dating back to 2003, where she is the only woman in a governmental delegation of about at least the top 5, and then about 15 others, 20, 25, but only woman. And we go on official engagements, if she remembers very well, I'm speaking about the mixed commission, Nigeria Cameroon mixed commission, which was a very important national assignment, which took place for over 10 years. And she was the only woman at the top. And worse still, when we get to meet with our African partners, Cameroon, namely, sometimes in Senegal, there will be no woman at all on their own side. So in a sense, we give ourselves applause in Nigeria that we at least had one woman. But the sad reality is that today, in 2025, not 2003, it's still this perception of tokenism. So I don't want to speak too much. What specific strategies need to be quickly brought to bear on this situation? Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gwenga. Let me commend you, because indeed that is the problem. But my short answer to this is hardly anything is based on statistical data. We don't have data. If you don't have data, you cannot track anything. Because we need to be able, I think that there should be a conscious and intentional commitment to identifying women in different areas and putting it out there. Also, even an independent thing, like for instance, even in our profession, when it comes to, take for instance, election petitions, this last one that we did, we had 4 groups. And I can tell you, PDP, 1 woman, myself. APC, 1 woman. INEC, 1 woman. And it looks okay. And it had been like that, like you even mentioned, since how many years? So in other words, we are still in the same place. But that's because it has to be, if it's not backed by facts, if it's not backed by data, if people are not setting them, assigning themselves the duty of actually recording, collating data on different scenarios so that you put it together, you will not know whether or not you're moving forward or you're moving back. Quite frankly, I think we're even worse now. And that's because it's almost the norm. If you see one woman, oh, thank God. And that's it. But that's not good enough, because we're not developing. And that's because we're not evolving. There is no increased participation on people who are competent and able. So my answer to you is, without data collection, without research as to know the root cause, why is it so, which we have identified indirectly. It's a mental attitude. There's a new world, for instance. All these initiatives that are being done, how many are designed for women? How many are designed to bridge the gap? Who is doing the research to show that, in fact, there's inequity? So there have to be, I think the problem is because mentally nothing is based on numbers. We don't see the impact, the negative impact and injury being caused. So for me, my answer would be research, data collection, statistics. If you don't have numbers, don't say anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard Silk, and thank you, Professor Gbenga Ondunton, for that question.
Sorry, I didn't call him Prof. I'm so sorry. I think the last time we interacted, you're a doctor, but it's nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard Silk.
The senior advocate has been accustomed to calling me doctor for 2 decades. I think she's not the only one. It will take me another decade to scale that issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have another question from Dr. Ijoma Anozie. The floor is yours, Dr. Anozie.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pedi. And Leonard Silk, thank you very much. I listened with rapt attention at your submissions. Permit me for not to put my screen on. I'm trying to put it on, but I think it's even going to affect my network. Yeah, so if you can hear me, then that's fine. I'll just ask my question.
I can hear you.
Yes, okay. So I was thanking the Leonard Silk for the well-researched paper that she delivered to us. But just like Professor Wenga Oduto noted, I think it's been all, talk, and we're not walking the talk. Exactly. And I wish the Minister of Women Affairs was able to join us so that she can also share her experience with how difficult it is to get women on the limelight. I know they say power does not come to you with ease. You have to go out there and take it. So I'm thinking it's that time when women should, find ways of taking this thing from, making ourselves very visible and not allowing, the men who are, of course, at the helm of affairs dictate to us how we come in, how we state our problems, how we do anything. I think it's that time when the discussion should now be, how do we women come together and take this power and project more women? I think that should be what the talk is, because we've had a lot of talks on how women being sidelined is affecting other women. So we should now walk the talk and know how we can actually project ourselves to save our young women, our young girls, and give them a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, it's a broad question, but I can see where you're going with it. And I agree that we've been talking. Actually, we really have been talking. And yet, no difference. If anything, I think it's slightly worse than it was 10, 15 years ago. That is not to say that I would not acknowledge the success stories, which is why I mentioned those people. However, I think in order to be able to generate the kind of pressure and the kind and to eventually cause the change to happen, I think in the various areas that have been mentioned. Take, for instance, the statistics, there's a department of statistics, if I'm not mistaken. There is. But how do we put, you see, there must be a forum. And take, for instance, this International Lawyers Association, where you have a women's department. To start with, they should, that can be a platform where any woman, because the responsibility is really on all of us. If you feel there is an office, there's an opening, and you note that there are people that can deliver on those, there might be a policy, and there should be a policy that such qualified people are put forward. So in other words, if you don't have a mouthpiece, individually you cannot attain much. Even when you are the only one in the pack. For me personally, I feel somehow uncomfortable because it either looks as if you're very happy being picked at the expense of other women in your gender. And at the same time, when you are speaking and anytime you open your mouth, it is about the women, they now make it look as if it's a sentimental thing, whereas it is not. It is in the interest of all of us as a country or a society. Therefore, that piece that shows how gender, how the impact of bridging the gap affects and it's correlated to the success of people, the increase in GDP, the increase, those, if you are able to articulate it in such a way that for different sectors and different facets of life, you are able to bring it up. So it's not a sentiment, because most of the time when you bring up issues of gender, people think you are being sentimental. It's not about that. It is for the benefit even of the men. This extreme corruption that we're saying, why don't you try women? Try them. But nobody wants to listen. So, and I can assure you, if you go by yourself, they will stop you before you move. But if you have a platform, like for me, when I was invited to this, which I didn't know about really, I felt that this is another platform we can use to speak. Nilo is in Nigeria, but sometimes too, when it's so top heavy with women, there are other issues. But you see, if we are targeted, what are we targeted at? At bridging the gap. We recognize that there is inequality. We recognize that, and there's a gap. So if you take sector by sector and identify where the gap is, you may be able to channel it. And that's why, again, back to Professor. Now I'm using the correct term. Back to Professor, where he asked that question. And I said, it is about data collection. It's about statistics. When you begin to put out that statistic, you find that it registers. So you take it out of the realm of sentiment to the realm of facts. And in that case, it is objective. And if the country, because there's another thing, there must be a will. The nation must be ready to get out of where it is. And I think we're at that stage where people realize that there's something we are consistently not doing right. And that is because you're shutting the mouths and you're taping the voices, silencing the voices of people who, if you can only amplify their voices, it will actually have an effect, because it's not one person talking because of herself, but it's about talking about the next generation. It's about taking advantage and using your manpower. And when I look at the way the Chinese, for instance, behave, man, woman, there's no difference. If you can work, they call you. We should get to that. But first and foremost, you have to back it up with statistics. So for me, we have been talking, but until you have numbers to say there's a disparity, there is no access, you have to be able to say, these are the number of people that applied for facilities. These are the number that are men. These are the number that are women. Why were they refused? Is it because they don't have property? Is it because they don't have money? What is the reason? Then you can talk. Otherwise, it's just like a fishwife tale. You come and just, like you're gisting, which is the point you're making. Sometimes I'm discouraged because I think a lot of people know what the problem is, but the issue is, how do we solve it? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard Silk, for that response. I'm afraid we can take just one last question, and that's because we're conscious of the time. We have a question from Chelsea Agbasiri, and her question is, how can we safeguard women's rights to land and inheritance?
Beautiful. I think in my paper, I probably jumped it. I talked about safeguarding policies, and I said it should be in the workplace, but it should also be punishable. Most of the time, even some of the lurid jokes you hear should not be allowed. But if you don't define what malpractice is, certain comments made, touching people where they are not supposed to touch, insinuating all kinds of things, and the punishment that will go with it, and the fact that if you whistle blow, you will not be punished. We have not started. And it should be something that, because I want a lot of the time, honestly speaking, people don't even know it's wrong. So for me, the awareness on the policies or on how safeguarding can be entrenched, not just in the workplace, but in the psyche of our people, such that you cannot do certain things. Such that it's, if it is shown that you have denied me an opportunity because of something you think you want, then there should be consequences. So the question you asked is how just to remind me, you said, how do we introduce safeguarding? Is it policies or
How do we
principles?
safeguard inheritance and land rights for women? I think it was.
Is that what you talked about? I thought I had safeguarding.
Ira.
How can we safeguard women's rights to land and inheritance?
Oh, so sorry. So I was talking about something else. Okay. No, if it's inheritance, that is just law. You have to legislate to be able to enforce. And therefore, maybe we should rise from here, for instance, and draft a memo, send it to the National Assembly, and then lobby. If we don't have the mentality and the ability to move beyond this talk to action, and one of them is lobbying. You're not lobbying for all sorts of other things. You are lobbying for real issues, specific issues. You identify the House, the chairman of whichever relevant committee, and begin to engage them. And we identify, and I believe that's this department can really help. What are the laws presently? How do we amend them? Because indeed, this question of inheritance and land ownership is a major and a real problem, even to people who you think are very educated and, in quotes, very powerful. Yeah. Not to talk of in the remote areas. Those ones are just cheated out of life. And yet they work so hard. And if you want social cohesion, these things should not be allowed to persist in this century. And for some of us, we are looking at our grandchildren, our children, and our children's children. It cannot continue. So as far as I am, in answer to your question, I think that can only be, not only, but will be addressed by legislation, which should be reviewed because it exists, and advocacy. So that, and then of course, you might also add this political representation, because if you have more women in the National Assembly, especially if you as a group, they know that they were sent there for an assignment, you will be able to continue to talk to them, continue to educate them, continue to encourage them to defend those bills when they finally arrive on the floor of the House. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard Silk. And I think this is a great place to end the question and answer session. Thank you all, everyone, for participating. I will now hand over to Pedi to take the concluding part of the webinar. Pedi.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ire. And again, thank you, Leonard Silk, for your interventions. I think it's been a very insightful conversation. You've sent us on assignments, as they say. So we have our work cut out for us, and we hope that we're able to count on your continued support for the rest of the things that we've got planned. I mean, it'll interest you to note that some of the things that we have planned really speak to the issues that you have already raised. So for instance, you talked about the need for data. And as a committee on women and international law and development under the ILA Nigeria, we are really keen on conducting research because we agree with you that the lack of data is a stumbling block. So we would encourage everyone to please look out for our upcoming programs. We have this year already planned 3 research activities where we're hoping to generate data on women's experiences in various sectors. So we'll be focusing on climate change, we'll be focusing on the energy sector, we'll also be focusing on water, sanitation, and hygiene. And in all of these programs, we've decided to mainstream disability rights as a cross-cutting issue. So please get in touch with us. If you're not already a member of the committee, this is the time to join us and let us work together to make this happen. You also talked about advocacy. And again, that's another area that we are focusing on this year. So we're going to be doing a lot of community outreach and advocacy. And all of this is geared towards policy engagement. So we're delighted that we have the Honorable Minister here with us today. Unfortunately, she's not able to speak at this moment because she's been called to an urgent meeting. But she's assured us that we will take the conversation forward and she'll be getting in touch with trying to create a forum where we can have more interactions with her directly. So we're looking forward to that, but that's just an example of the kind of policy engagement that we want to carry on for the rest of the year. And as the Atlantic has also encouraged us to do, nothing stops us from going to the National Assembly as well. So all of this has already been planned, and we're hoping to have networking sessions as well, where we get to understand what you're doing, where you are, and where we can influence policies around you, programs around you. So if there's anything that you think is key for us to be looking at, please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. We're on social media, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter or X as it's now called. And we also have our email address. So please get in touch with us. The email address is wild@ilanigeria.org.ng, as you can see on the screen. The X Twitter handle is at WILD_CMTE_ILANG. And on LinkedIn, we are Committee on Women, International Law and Development, ILA Nigeria. We will put out the recording and the paper as well as the presentation that's been kindly prepared by the Leonard SIG through our social media channel. So it's important that you follow us so that you can keep up to date with all this information. And if you want to join the committee as well, please let us know and we'll send you the membership form and other guidelines on how to join the committee. I think the other thing I'd like to mention before I pass it on to Ire for the final thanks is that we also have the ILA Nigeria conference coming up in April. So all of that is on our social media, and we'll encourage you to get in touch and join the conference. The conference is holding in Abuad. So it's an in-person conference and it's themed sustainable development, but also focused on international trade and the ways in which we can together make trade and investments more sustainable and inclusive. So these conversations around women's equality, women's empowerment, but also empowerment for other people in the society will be front and center at that conference. So we invite you to join us there as well. I think that's it from me. I can't but say a big thank you to everybody. It's really been a delight having you here with us. Thank you to Mrs. Nella Andem-Ewa, SAN, for her very insightful talk. And for everyone who's been here, the Honorable Minister, all of us, thank you very much. Over to you, Ire. And I look forward to seeing you at future events. Over to you, Ire.
Thank you, Pedi. Thank you for that explanation and for pointing people to the social media handles on the committee. I'd also like to again thank the Leonard Silk and also to our audience. We thank you for being with us over the past 1 hour, 30 minutes, and we look forward to inviting you to future events of the committee. Thank you all and have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.